So I'm making this video about Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders because this shit has been a fucking nightmare. Like, watching people just fucking... It's like 2016 all over again. A bunch of people don't understand policy who are just, like, uninformed as a motherfucker talking shit about Bernie Sanders because they think they know what's fucking up. And the truth is, you know those rich white people with, like, the real money and the real power who think black people are just a bunch of stupid people who can't think for themselves? The people who supported Hillary Clinton, the blacks in 2016, who hated Bernie Sanders, supporter Hillary Clinton, proved those people 100% right. And that same thing is happening right now with Kamala Harris. And it's just brutal. I mean, it is just so brutal. Like people don't even really get like what Bernie Sanders was saying and what Bernie Sanders was actually talking about and standing for and fighting for. If you want to talk about real benefit to the black community, Bernie Sanders was it. And it breaks my heart because I'm exhausted. Like, if you can tell, I'm pretty light-skinned. I could pass any day of the damn week. But when 2016 happened, man, I was exhausted and just disappointed, like, beyond anything. Because of the fact all of the hatred and vitriol that was sent towards a person who marched with MLK. You know? Like, real talk. Like, this dude got arrested fighting for civil rights. And people are going to hate him. Black people are going to hate him. A person who, he didn't have to do that. And democratic socialism, you want to know the funny thing about democratic socialism? MLK was a democratic socialist. Bernie Sanders' inherent philosophy is in direct relation and in direct footsteps of MLK's philosophy himself. Like, literally, Bernie Sanders is walking in the footsteps of MLK. And black people chose Hillary Clinton over Bernie Sanders because the media made them feel powerful. Like, well, is Bernie Sanders going to be able to overcome black people? Black people like, yeah, we got power and control over Bernie Sanders. We're great, we got the power. Yeah, you got the power to screw yourselves over. I mean, millennials, we didn't do that. We weren't... I'm so tired, man. This junk is exhausting. Millennials, black millennials, we supported Bernie Sanders over Hillary Clinton, hands down, because we know, we look at her like, oh yeah, she's a liar. Like, I don't trust her at all. And that super predators, we need to bring them to heel. These are the people that black people look to freaking lead us, to help us. Nah, man, that shit ain't right. And another thing is, people don't really understand what Bernie Sanders is about, but they still hate him and still talk crap about him. So I'm gonna inform people on, like, how shit works. Because, to be real, my dad's a Harvard graduate, I learned a few things. I had access to education a lot of other people didn't. And I've tried to make myself into a person who could potentially benefit and help other people. So, I'm gonna make this video. Sorry if I was angry before, but this is just... I'm tired, man. It's just really exhausting. So, Bernie Sanders. Why is he the better candidate and why he was going to be the best candidate for black people overall. This is how it works. Marijuana. Bernie Sanders came out and said he was going to decriminalize marijuana in America. Do you know what that means? Do you know how many black people have their lives ruined, get freaking felonies because of the fact they get a marijuana charge? Do you know how marijuana is stigmatized towards black people? Do you know how that perception has dominated the entire American culture? If marijuana became decriminalized, you know what would happen immediately? Black people would stop getting arrested and thrown in prison for marijuana immediately across the United States. And you know what that would mean? At the end of the day, marijuana would lack and stop being stigmatized. And more so than that, the black community would stop being stigmatized with marijuana being this entirely negative thing. Because it's really not. You know what I mean? Like, alcohol kills vastly more people than marijuana ever has. But yeah. But doing that would have had an impact for the black community all across the United States almost immediately. It would have changed things. It would have made things better. You know what Hillary Clinton said she would do? She said she would consider rescheduling it. Not decriminalizing it, rescheduling it. And that was Hillary Clinton. That was Hillary Clinton's big plan. That was Hillary Clinton's, like, olive branch to the black community, which was, She's going to reclassify marijuana. And this is a person that people chose over Bernie Sanders. Black people chose over Bernie Sanders. Marijuana, the war on drugs, was literally created by Nixon to lock up black people and hippies. There was an aide who literally came out and bragged about this in the 90s. And Bill Clinton, while knowing this, while hearing this, created the 3 strikes rule and put the crime bill, which, you know, put a $500 billion into new prisons and new jails. And now America literally locks up more people than China. Any other country in the entire world, we lock up more people. And it's mainly black people. And it's because of the war on drugs. And Bernie Sanders said he's going to stop the war on drugs. Do you know who that would mostly affect? Black people. Bernie Sanders talking about $15 minimum wage. You know who gets paid under? Black women. You know who that would help? Black women. And even more so than that, like the other major factor that people don't understand is the reason black people have had such a hard time getting any foothold in America is because at the end of the day, we lack a level of economic cohesion. You know what I mean? Like other groups and other cultures came over here and they were poor, but they were given the chance to make money and rise within the social and economic hierarchies. You know what I mean? So you come over here, you're poor, but the American dream, you work really hard, really, really hard. Your kids can have a better life than you had. You know what I mean? If you work really hard, you can make your life better. That was the basis of the American dream. But it never really worked out for black people because people kept passing us by. You know what I mean? Italians were hated, then they screwed over blacks, then Italians were cool. Irish were hated, then they screwed over blacks, then they were cool. Like, this is like the actual history. Like in New York City, freaking, they had people who bombed the Black Wall Street. Like, just bombed an entire city. Doesn't even talk about that. Nobody talks about that. Major point, black people haven't been allowed to come to any level of economic strength so they could help benefit the next generation. So pretty much black people are stuck in a perpetual state of poverty because first off, there's still a lot of racism within this country. You know what I mean? Like, it's real. And that affects hiring. You know what I mean? Like, a white felon has a higher chance of getting a call back for a job than a black person without a criminal history. And I mean that literally. They did a statistic. I mean, you can look it up on Google, but black people just like black people just get screwed over and over. And I want to add myself into that aspect because I'm light-skinned. You know what I mean? Like, I'm real light. I can pass like the best of them. So I don't have that particular issue to deal with. So, like, this has always been a choice for me. I don't know. Being black isn't a choice, but for me, I don't have to own it, but I own it because, like, Tupac and MLK and shit, like, it's real. Like, I really gave a fuck about, okay, still do, and still give a fuck about black people, but, like, this idea that just because the media, that black people are just gonna be like, put a black person in front of black America, where it's like, oh, let's vote for that person, because they're obviously looking out for us, is just, it's exhausting, you know what I mean? Because I actually care, and Bernie Sanders was the person to do it. I thought Bernie Sanders could bridge the divide of hatred within this country because he was just so honest and straightforward. But yeah, but more so than that. What was I gonna say? Bernie Sanders, honest and straightforward. Okay, so the major reason black people haven't been able to really succeed in America is because of the fact we've never been given a foothold. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, there needs to be blue-collar jobs for Americans, and black Americans especially, because what a blue-collar job will do will create a level of economic stability for a lot of Americans and a lot of black Americans. And I think that if we do a Green New Deal, there needs to be a provision for impoverished communities, white, black, be it whatever, but there needs to be a provision that black people get work. You know what I mean? Because what you do is you give people an economic capacity and an economic, foothold to then create wealth within and for themselves and for their families. And this gives their children, the better capacity to actually engage within the society and higher economic systems and higher levels of education, which then proceeds to give them even a higher status within the world and within the country because they get a college education. And then that people and those families have college educations, and then they create a new level of culture, a new level of understanding, a new level of connection to the world around them and to each other. And through that development, You create an entirely new culture based and predicated off of entirely new ideas, entirely new experiences, and that helps out everybody. And you know what would help that? Free college. Literally. Community college, it doesn't matter. If any black person who wanted to learn could go to college and get a degree for free, if they just put in the work, you're taking so much of the most difficult aspect of college away and just throwing it out, which is the debt. Like, so many black people can't even consider going to college because they have to work to live. If you allow a black person who's just willing to work as hard as they can to go to college for free, you're going to see black people start to succeed, and you're going to see black people start to make more money, and after they start making more money, the entire black community and black culture will be able to benefit from that reality. That's what Bernie Sanders was talking about. And the problem is, and the real problem is that people chose Clinton because of the fact, what? Like, I mean, seriously, because of the fact she talked to black people? Is that it? Is that all it takes? She was a Goldwater girl. When Bernie was marching with MLK, Hillary Clinton was supporting Goldwater. And this is the person you choose as your champion. And now it's Kamala Harris, who is pro-cop, and pro. She lost the people for truancy. That's who Kamala Harris is. And you see black people supporting her, it's just like, look, I'm exhausted. Like, the world's screwed up. There's climate change. There's all this, but black issues have been my issues. Like, I've spent years trying to figure out solutions, trying to figure out what the best arguments, what's really going on, how we fix this, how do we help this. And then you get people just jump on like the Kamala Harris train, and it breaks my heart. And I hope, and I see like hope that like black people are, you know, starting to like catch on to who this person really is. And if that's the case, then that's what's up. But to be 100% real, man, there was no better candidate than Bernie Sanders, because he was talking about the real shit that really affects us, and the real shit that could really help us. But you just had people who just wanted to hate him. You know what I mean? Because they felt like they were superior to him. Like Bernie Sanders was trying to cheat him because of the fact that he wanted to become. Nah, he wasn't trying to cheat you. He's just nice and wasn't trying to attack Hillary Clinton. And the media gave you the impression like Bernie Sanders thinks that he's better than you. Bernie Sanders and his Bernie bro followers are trying to screw over black people. They don't want to listen to black people. That's who the Bernie bros really are. These are people. These are white entitled people who think black people should just go away. That was never it. It was never it. It was a fucking constructed narrative by the corporate media to make people think that. And that's all it ever was. And so it just became so disappointing for me to watch this stuff, because Bernie Sanders was really genuinely a freaking product of MLK. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not just saying that shit. Like, MLK was a democratic socialist. That's who MLK was. Do you know what Bernie Sanders is? A freaking democratic socialist. These are his values. You want to talk about values? This is what Bernie Sanders has lived with his entire life. Is democratic socialism. He's not only followed in MLK's steps, he said and stayed consistent to the philosophy of MLK. And if you're going to judge a person by the content of their character, a person who is willing to follow in MLK footsteps, even though he's a white Jewish dude, that person gets and deserves my respect. And any black person who can't relate to that, man, you ain't nothing to me. And that's real. Like, that's real. You can't relate to that. You can't relate to a white Jewish person who could have easily gone another way, try to make money, try to do this, but instead of that, he's been fighting for people in need. He's been fighting for black people. Yeah. I don't care. Like, it's not even racism. It's just that you want to feel superior to him, you know? And that just irritates me. Because, like, that's pathetic. That you need to feel superior to Bernie Sanders. That's it. Like, that's it. It doesn't matter that he actually cares. You just want to feel superior, so you're gonna hate him. All right. You live your life like that. You do that. Peace. I'm still working on the whole loving your enemies thing. Niggas be annoying. Like, for real. Like, motherfucker be pissing me off. Like, goddamn. Like, ugh. I know MLK, but real shit. Motherfuckers be on my nerves. Alright, deuces.